All right, welcome back. Another Rebooting Blue. We've got Chris Humphreys here. Chris, thanks so much for making the time to connect again.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. And so today we're talking about exercise, and just its role, right? Let's think like mental health, obviously physical health, and especially like as it relates to people working in the field of law enforcement. And real quick, neither of us is medical doctors, so check with your doctor before you begin any medical or exercise regimen. So now that
Please.
that's out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so Chris, like dive in. I know my understanding is like physical fitness and exercise is big in your life too. So like take it away.
Yeah, as a man that's past that 50 mark and a few years, a couple decades working in and around as a first responder. Um, and then, as a therapist that works now with first responders, really with critical incident stuff, PTSD, acute stress reaction. And again, right, I don't like the PTSD term. And that's actually plays into this conversation, right? Where we look at like a post-traumatic stress injury, very recoverable, right? Um, Exercise plays into that. It's one of the roles. And I say this, and I also want to presage everything by saying like I'm not anti-medication. I'm not, I mean, everything has its role in the treatment world. Um, but exercise, and in fact, the research goes back way more than 20 years, so much so that we don't even look at it much anymore, that really supports the role of exercise, physical fitness, in not only recovery, but in sort of increasing your resiliency to symptomatic experiences of what would be like PTSI, or your major depressive disorder, anxiety, um, those things. Again, I mean, the research is strong. It's been around for a long time. I think the last thing I actually looked at was something that came out about a year ago. That was kind of a review of almost all the studies, and it's just profound. That one was good. And again, I'm going to quote it probably incorrectly. I should have probably pulled it up before this conversation. But what I found interesting in that is it's been researched so much that we actually now know what sort of physical activities are somewhat more effective. The walking, jogging, yoga. I know you guys have got a yoga program there, and I think that that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of area agencies that support that, and resistance training, right? Um, they see those as being some of the more effective ones, especially in relation to um, dealing or mitigating for depression. Um, as a trauma therapist, I will tell you, uh, if somebody is engaged in a good exercise regimen prior to experiencing, especially some, the overwhelming big traumatic incidences like an OIS or something like that, I can tell you, at least from my experience now with a lot of them as clients, that recovery period is shortened. They usually kind of bounce back faster. Um, Exercise increases that window of tolerance. I mean, again, the research shows that several studies have shown that it's more consistent, more effective than any medication that we have, really, especially again for depression. Um, and again, a lot of science behind that. As I've said before, when we were talking about window of tolerance stuff and a couple of these back, the brain needs discomfort, right, in order to grow and sort of build those pathways. And that there's some thought that what it does in helping with us either recover from or be more resilient towards those post-traumatic sort of stress or acute stress experiences is that it's kind of exposure therapy, right? I mean, you're you're increasing heart rate, you're doing these things, right, that force you, into almost like a limbic state on a regular basis. That allows your body to sort of get to know it, build up towards it, even get a level of comfort towards it. And so when it does happen out there in the field, that sort of again mitigates that being a reactive experience later on. So I have all kinds of phrases I throw out there in treatment, but we'll even say one of the ones I hold to, and I'm probably misquoting. I think it's Einstein, but it said something like, right, there is no, there is, there's nothing happening until you see movement, and that's really right. I mean, depression, even suicidality, all of those things that we see, those things really love you to be immobile.
Mm,
Right. I mean, suicidality is something we haven't talked much about, but is still very prevalent in our first responder cultures. Too much so. It's an experience of hopelessness, and we talk about where somebody gets in that their fight, flight, squeeze, or freeze, right? Um, and those are actual levels. And when I see somebody that's in that sort of squeeze where right they can't move, they can't get up, I can't, that's when we're looking at hopelessness starting to come in, and it's sometimes it's just so much as let's get up and move.
mhm.
I get peer teams talk all the time, like, what can we do? I get leadership ask what we do, and I say there's sometimes you have to be brave as a leader and even go to the house, grab them and say, let's get out of here. Let's go for a walk. I mean, why don't you meet me at the gym? Um, I don't want to talk about work. Let's just go get a sweat on. Let's go out and hike some trails. Um, that's some stuff that can be really good, especially after like a major incident like an OIS, or when the officers are kind of on leave during a grand jury or something. I'll get asked, what's one way we can support them? I say movement, to be honest. I mean, don't put them in a headlock and drag them, but you can be persistent and suggest let's get out of the house and get your blood pumping a little bit. So,
Yeah, I love that. And it has me thinking, I just recently had to do some research for a presentation, and I wanted to dive more into like the concepts around the different types of stress, but really looking at eustress, or like good stress versus distress, right? And what's happening in the brain uh that's different in those two experiences. And so, I mean, you know this, right? But when we think about eustress or good stress, the brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline, and cortisol. Where distress, right, that form of like negative stress, which is what can become overwhelming and harmful, and feel unpleasant. That's when the brain releases cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. So we're missing that dopamine and oxytocin, right? And the big kind of difference between the good stress, the eustress, and the distress is our perception that we can face and overcome the challenge in front of us. And often eustress is going to provide us with an opportunity to like improve a skill, or reach a goal. So that's something that I think about a lot when it comes to like especially like challenging myself physically, right? Like I think that's why, I mean, I would not do a marathon, but I'm assuming that's why people enjoy running long distances.
and I look at
Um,
me, I'm not running unless I'm getting chased or there's a meal at the end of it, and it's got to be a short distance. But
or it's like after a pickleball or something. Like,
right. Well, and that's what we say, and I think we've done a few of these now and it gets thematic, but again, we add the word intentional to this one too. I mean, and we'll see that, and I talk about that when working with peer teams is, help your people, sort of set goals in that. I mean, it can't just be like, well, and it may just initially start out, I'm just going to kind of go for a walk, but when you see somebody really and they're starting to go towards that recovery, or again, they're just they want to be healthy and increase their resilience to this job so that you can retire healthy, right? There's some intentionality to it, and with exercise, that's goal setting. I want to be able to do X, or I'm even that. I just want to get up to where I can do 20 minutes 3 times a week. Okay. Work towards that. What is it that you're looking to do? And this is again, talk about themes that we keep visiting, but the other big thing about exercise as far as recovery or increasing resiliency is its effect on sleep. And I will tell you, if I'd have known 6 years ago when I first started being a therapist, that that sleep was such a magic bullet, right, for recovery, for resiliency, for how a person is just even reactivity wise, right, in relationships. And exercise, we know, right, increases the quality of your sleep. That's another thing that's been pretty widely established. Now, again, you want to have good sort of sleep hygiene habits, and sometimes working out right before you're going to go to bed, especially in today's world where it's like, I'm tired, so I hit myself with some pre-workout after a night shift so I can go get my lift in, and then now I wonder why I'm still up at 1 in the afternoon and only have 4 hours till I'm supposed to go in. Again, timing, but that goes back to that intentionality. But yeah, if you have a good exercise regimen, you tend to get better quality sleep. And that is when the brain heals itself, right? That's just like a lot of the body. I mean, that's when the healing process sort of happens. So yeah, yeah, exercise. There's a lot of times I'll have somebody that'll come to me and they've been on all the medication,
Mhm.
and one of their treatment goals is I want to get off these meds for some reason, or at least get not be taking as much. And while we'll do all the modalities, therapeutic stuff, the EMDR, the CBT, the blah blah blah, if they start to sort of integrate a good exercise regimen,
Mhm.
I won't say guarantee, but more likely than not, we'll start to see if we're working in conjunction with their prescriber,
Mhm.
right? They will be able to start to come off that medication, or at least again lower the amounts, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, again, not a guarantee. I wouldn't say 100%, but I see that a lot, right? I see that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So move, right? Get up and move.
Please move. Yes, move. And I appreciated kind of like, well, everything you said always, but you mentioned, right, like just getting started. So even if it's just like you're going to go for a walk or I don't know, do 10 push-ups or something small. Like when I think about sometimes, I see people like facing the challenge of like, oh, I used to like do CrossFit and I worked out a ton and I could lift this much weight. And like maybe they haven't been as active recently or for a prolonged period of time since then. And it's just like, because they can't hit that level right away, it's like that barrier to restarting, right? Or they try to go straight back to that level, and then you're like, oh, this was a bad life choice. And then you kind of fall
Right.
out again. So I think it's like maybe, and I think Steve and I talked last month about habits, right? Like forming habits and so when I think about exercise, especially if you haven't done it for a while, like for me, I think about like, okay, what's something small and consistent I can do regularly, right? And you don't have to necessarily join a gym right away. Like it can be as simple as when did PE when we were younger, right? Like do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, do some air squats, like do something consistently, like you said, to just get moving and start building that back in. And you can always build on it and find more like ways to physically challenge yourself. But it's like
Well,
make it achievable.
yeah, that the law enforcement retirement package of the bad knees, bad back, bad shoulders, and now we're seeing like rheumatoid arthritis, right? I mean, um, yeah, there's a high endorsement for body weight exercises actually, and again, they kind of rack that up to resistance training, especially some of us put on enough pounds that it's definitely resistance training, right? And that can be done, anywhere in a lot of places, right? I mean, even just sometimes standing out by your patrol car, right? On a night shift, whatever you got to do, but yeah, get that heart rate up. And get those joints sort of moving. Yeah, so exercise is your friend. I mean, again, the research is there. As a person that works in this field, um, it's sometimes interesting because you'll get you'll get these instances where you'll have the person who'll say, okay, technically, research shows 20 minutes a day of this, exercise or this activity, um, shows that it reduces these symptoms. Or over here's a pill,
Yeah.
right? And again, I'm not bashing on the world. I mean, I fall into sort of easy fixes too sometimes, right? But here's this pill that may have these side effects too. and may only have, an efficacy of up to 40%, whereas exercise, right, a good exercise regimen, especially for depression, I think, runs somewhere around like 80% in some of the randomized control stuff. Now, sometimes those sampling, uh, you know, could look a little off, but still, right? And sometimes it's like, well, I don't have time for this, so give me this pill. Again, everybody's they got to make the decisions in their own treatment and how to sort of get better. But what I'm loving is these discussions about building resiliency. So let's strengthen our armor before it happens, and that's movement. That's movement. That's pushing stuff. That's taxing your body a little bit, making it sweat. That's causing your brain to ask itself, can I go one more mile further? And of course, it's thinking that your body's saying no, but hey, if you can push through, right? That's the kind of stuff that when you're in the dark of night, right, and it's really scary, and you're standing over that call that has just happened, and it's like your mind is going, wait, did this just it's interesting those little moments that you put in the bank where you pushed your body, where you've asked it to do something in a controlled environment, you reached it. That stuff really comes to play in those moments when you're on the side of the road and something real, real shitty is, oh, sorry, I swear, something really, really bad
Where?
has happened, right? That'll cause you to bounce back a little bit
Yeah, I
faster.
love that term. Put it in the bank. That James Clear, who I quote sometimes from Atomic Habits, it makes me think of his quote where that our exercise habits are a lagging investment in our health, our longevity, and our overall quality of life, um, both physically and mentally. Um, and it's something, as long as we're able to move in some capacity that we can access, even for free, right? Like in your house, on the side of the road.
And there's that beat up term too, that right, health is wealth when you're at a certain age. And I've had the absolute honor of working with a lot of first responders in retirement now. And also technically myself, I collect a pension. I'm retirement age. And there are a couple that I think that I've worked with that definitely would have passed up on an overtime shift or two now and spend a little bit more time sort of working on some physical support issues now that they're in their retirement age. That extra couple percentage points on your monthly versus whatever sort of long-term metabolic stuff that they're working on now and facing. Can't even put a price on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
check with a doctor. And if they
yes,
say
please. None of
go,
us
start
are.
now.
Yeah. Yes.
If
Yes.
they say you're good to go, start now. Listen to last month's episode on building healthy habits so that you start in an achievable way that keeps you building momentum, and figure out how, you can challenge your body physically to support that mental wellness and your sleep. Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate you as always. And
Right.
see you next month, I think.
All right.